Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords, and well, got a new story for you guys. The reason I've got in the background here the monster manual and Lion and Dragon is all, as you know, you might have heard me mention this sometime if you're a regular viewer of this channel. I participated in the creation of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. There's another person who participated in that creation, that was Chris Perkins, who is a full-time Wizards of the Coast employee, one of the, probably the top 3 best-known guys there. You know, Mike Merles, Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins. Now, Mike Merles isn't working in the D&D part anymore, but, you know, those were the guys that had top billing, allegedly, on the creation of the rules, right? And Chris Perkins was, I think, quoted in the Monster Manual as the main designer of the Monster Manual. And Chris has gotten himself into a little bit of trouble just now. Now, I should preface this by pointing out that Chris Perkins is completely ideologically in tune with the rest of the current atmosphere at Wizards of the Coast, which is that of, you know, very extreme wokeness. He's a little quieter than, say, Jeremy Crawford, which is clearly trying to make a career out of this. But Perkins is, you know, he said a few things, and he's played along. He followed all the rules. He tried to do everything right. And yet, now, he's being attacked by the left. Not by the right, by the left, right? Not by some D&D Gate fanboys who hate him for I don't know what. He's too boring for us to hate him, to be honest. He's never done anything of note, right? But he's hated by his own people on the left. And of course he is, because that's what the left does. The left devours its own. And if you think, especially if you are an actual gamer, and I suspect maybe Perkins is, I can't be sure, of course. There are certain reasons to argue against it. I mean, first of all, he works for Wizards of the Coast, so there's a good chance he's not a real gamer. But there are other things that, you know, he worked long enough for Wizards of the Coast that maybe he is. So, in any case, regardless of what you try to do to appease the crowd, the time will come when they come for you, right? If you're wearing glasses, you can be Pol Pot's biggest fan, right? You can cheer him on. You can work your way into a middle-level position in the Khmer Rouge. But sooner or later, when there aren't other people with glasses around for them to execute as a you know, capitalist intellectual, it's going to be your turn. That's just how it is. That's just how it goes for them, right? And I guess obviously the SJW gang have, you know, been, unfortunately they've been disrupted there by the fact that Mike Merles is no longer operating D&D. They still, you know, they don't know enough about the guy who's taken over to be sure, you know, whether they should destroy him or not. He kind of looks, I mean, he did Underground, right? So he kind of looks like the sort of guy that you would expect they would like. And Jeremy Crawford is, of course, their champion, right? He's the current White Knight for the moment. It's only because he's the best that they can do. You know, he's an LGBT man, right? It's that what they really want is an LGBT woman of color, possibly a disabled one. That would be the correct person, regardless of any other qualities they might have, but that would clearly be the type of person that they need running D&D. They have to run D&D. They have to be a socialist or communist, even better, Maoist, even best, woman of color, LGBT trans person who is disabled, right? And that person, because of what I just said, is obviously the most qualified person to be in charge of D&D. But they don't have that person yet. They haven't gotten to that point yet in Wizards of the Coast. So right now, Jeremy Crawford will do. You know, eventually he'll get the knife too. You know, they'll purge him as well, right? But it's just a matter of, you know, it's a matter of degrees, right? Perkins is a lot less groovy in the you know, hipster groovy card of the diversity complaints gang, right? So he's going to get it first. And what triggered the attack on Perkins is something a little bit weird. He responded to a tweet. This was a tweet from some stupid website, I think The Sun, right? Like the Sun newspaper. that said, these are 5 words, or no, what are the 5 words that men want to hear after they've from their partner after having sex, right? And Perkins answered something along the lines of roll, saving throw versus death, bitch, or something like that, right? Saving throw versus death, bitch. There you go, right? As his answer. And certain SJWs on Twitter immediately looked at this as a great opportunity. They looked at it as an opportunity to take the harshest possible interpretation of what he wrote. You know, that it wasn't meant to be something about, just some kind of stupid joke. I mean, I don't honestly know how he meant it. Maybe he meant like, I would like to strangle a woman, but I don't think that's what he meant, right? Because first of all, the Sun magazine is saying, what do men like to hear? So presumably the person saying the 5 words is not him, it's the woman who's doing it, right? And so, you would presume that, right? I would assume, if I was going to be really, you could take a very negative or a very positive view of what he said. He said something dumb that didn't make a lot of sense, so there's a lot of ways you can read into it, right? The best, kindest possible interpretation you could take of Perkins' response is that he said, what he was trying to imply was that after sex they play D&D, and his girlfriend is the DM, and he gets to so it's the nerd fantasy, right? The stupid nerd fantasy, because nerds have to combine everything together. He said, I'd have a girlfriend and I'd have sex and then we'd play D&D together. My girlfriend would like D&D. And I'm guessing, if you're going to be generous, that's the interpretation, right? If you're going to be a little less generous, then the other logical interpretation would be just that the girlfriend is using a term from D&D, and she's telling him, because the words are directed to him, it's the words he wants to hear. He's telling him save versus death, bitch, because he because maybe the sex was so incredibly good, right? And so it was like that kind of like the implication being it was that level of great that it could almost kill you in the French sense of le petit mot, right? But then if you really want to it's quite a stretch from there to the interpretation that every SJW immediately took, which is Chris Perkins is promoting sexual violence. He believes that after sex he should beat his wife or something like that. I don't know. That's sort of what they're suggesting. They're all outraged about it. None of them are super clear on it. But as soon as someone says, "Well, what did he say?" and the answer they give is he promoted sexual violence. Right? That's the only possible interpretation they will accept. Chris Perkins promoted sexual violence, so now he must be fired. Of course, right? He has to go. It's his turn out, one less white male in the company to get in their way so that they can eventually reach that goal of having the LGBT disabled gay woman of color trans person in charge of D&D, whether or not they've ever played D&D in their life before, or whatever their other abilities are or are not, right? Because none of that matters. They don't really care. They want to they want to drive D&D into the ground. They don't want D&D to succeed. They want D&D to be destroyed. But before they want it to be destroyed, they want it to be humiliated. So they need to make sure that it is shamed, that it is taken over, that it is replaced by someone who has nothing but contempt for it, that they make products that will then attack the very audience that liked D&D, and then finally D&D will be completely unprofitable, it'll fold, and then they'll get to blame racism and sexism for it folding, not the fact that they intentionally destroyed this game, right? Just like they intentionally destroyed comics, just like they've intentionally destroyed all kinds of, pop culture franchises. So, that's the standard operation, right? That's the rules for radical at play there. And now it's Perkins' turn. Now, do you think Perkins is going to smarten up about this? I doubt it. He apparently deleted the tweet, which is a stupid thing to do because that's not going to change anything. Now they're just saying, well, that proves he's guilty, right? The only reason you'd delete that tweet is if you were a rapist, right? Or something, I don't know, if you're planning to kill women, something like that. that's the only way that it would be, you know, that's the only reason that he would delete that. I thought that, you know, I bet you this is a poor bastard. I mean, I feel a little sorry for Perkins. I mean, in a way, you get what you fucking deserve, right, Perkins? Right? I mean, come on. You know? But in another way, this poor guy woke up one morning, he was looking at the Subway paper, he thought up a funny little joke about how, you know, how cool it would be, I'm guessing, how cool it would be to play D&D after sex, you know? And instead, he gets this, right? Like a flood of people demanding his destruction, right? And of course, it probably won't help him that I make this video and express the slightest sympathy to him, right? Because now somebody's going to say, the RPG pundit is on Chris Perkins' side, which means that Chris Perkins is going to get into even more trouble. Well, what can you do, right? I mean, I'm not really on his side per se. I'm just against these other motherfuckers, right? Anyhow, that's basically the story so far. The story is kind of in the early stages of development, but you can bet, based on what we saw in the Mike Merle's case, that it will lead to a never-ending campaign of demands that Hasbro/Wizards fire Chris Perkins until he's no longer involved in D&D, and then they will demand a number of important diversity hires of people who have no verifiable connection to D&D, but who happen to be the right racial, ethnic, or sexual groups, that they will then demand be put into those positions. People who will then run the game into the ground. That's the core of it, basically. The big lesson for this, if you're not Chris Perkins, if you are Chris Perkins, it's, well, you picked the wrong side, didn't you, bish? Right? But if you're not Chris Perkins, the real lesson here is don't buy products from people who despise you, right? The D&D is being run right now by people who are collaborating with the architects of your personal destruction. They want to destroy everything you love, your civilization, your culture, your family, your country, all of the values that you hold. They want to destroy your security. They want people to be able to kill you on the streets with impunity if those people are in the right ideological position compared to yours. They want to destroy equality. You know, they want to restore segregation. They want to they want to end up, their ultimate goal is the destruction of all Western civilization and all of its values, because they are fundamentally nihilists, right? They imagine, I mean, the rank and file imagine a utopia will follow, right? But the people at the very top are people that just despise humanity itself. They would love it if the human race went extinct, and some of them have said that for environmentalist reasons, right? So if Wizards of the Coast is putting up with these people, if it's tolerating them and encouraging them and hiring them and catering to them, and the people running D&D are saying, we're going to make our products to those people and not to the people who are the actual fans of the game, stop buying their stuff. Go ahead, buy OSR products made by people who actually like you, who actually like gaming, who actually like to game, and who don't want to destroy your civilization, right? Stuff like Lion and Dragon, or any of my other fine products, or any number of other fine products that some other fine people have also made. You can find them. Look up I have a video. If this is the first time you're watching this channel, there's one video on my list that I recommend more than anything to you if you're not already familiar with the OSR. It's a video called, the OSR will totally change how you game, or something like that. It's near the bottom. It's one of the early ones that I did. Look that up. Watch that video. You will be very glad that you did, because there's a whole slew of games that are being made that are independently made games, but there's no difference in the quality and the content from what Wizards produces. Well, there is a difference. The OSR games are way more creative. They're way better written. They're much more engaging to the actual gamer in many different ways. So you're going to find something you like. There's so much variation, right? So look for that. And of course, if you like my stuff, well, check out Medieval Authentic OSR role-playing, Lion and Dragon, right? Arrows of Indra, the Medieval Authentic Companion. If you don't like Medieval Authentic stuff, check out Star Adventurer, it's a tiny thin RPG, but it's got everything you need to run space opera, OSR style role-playing based on the original D&D rules, right? And check out all of my, RPG Pundit Presents series. There's a ton of stuff there for all types of of OSR D&D play, anything ranging from adventures to settings, from super medieval authenticity to weirdest, like the weirdest gonzo fantasy you can imagine. Check out my video of Dungeon Chef, which is the one before this one, for more information on that sort of thing. And yeah, just stop engaging with 5th edition stuff when you know that it's just going to keep getting worse. There is no saving this. They're not going to stop until the movement as a whole, what they're doing as a whole to society is destroyed. This is all part of one bigger culture war, right? Until they're defeated at the cultural level, there's no point in trying to fight their influence on a company, because that company is bounded. It doesn't really care what some, supposed indie RPG designer who makes games you've never heard of, but is, an ultra SJW, how much they hate D&D, or what they say on Twitter. What they care about is what, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will say, right? Or what MSNBC will say, right? What they know is that all of that is interconnected. And you got to figure that out too. There's a whole war going on that is all interconnected between the factions of people that despise civilization and the people that actually like civilization, right? It is not a race war in any way. It's not a gender war. It's not a religious war. It's a war between people who believe in the civilizational values and people that don't. So don't support them. We're not going to be able to over-influence the extreme left right now. Maybe we will in a few months even. Who knows, right? Like, if Trump wins in a landslide, this might totally crush them, right? Like, especially if some of them start actually getting arrested for the sedition and treason they've been committing. That would be great. But if that doesn't happen, then we might be in for a longer haul. But the good news is, in gaming, unlike in certain other industries where the audience has no choice, really. Like, Doctor Who fandom is screwed, right? Because, well, I guess they can make fan fiction, but that's all they can really do. They're never going to get Doctor Who back anytime in the foreseeable future, right? But RPG fans, anyone can make an RPG, and the publishing tools are all there. And there's tons and tons of great stuff out there, right? So be sure to check that out. And whatever you do, don't be like Chris Perkins. Don't try to cater to the other side in the hopes that you'll be the one guy with glasses that Pol Pot doesn't shoot. Right? Don't do that. You're just going to lose. And it's pathetic. So, yeah. I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking Lorenzetti Horn plus Argento Natural. Oh, and just before we go, just because I know you guys all want it, here's Big Chungus. Psst. There she is. Goodbye, everyone.